This is Johnny Henson, Professor Poole with Billiard University out of Goodyear, Arizona. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about deflection, what deflection is, and also some ways to avoid deflection and a little bit of information on low deflection cues. Deflection is when you hit the cue ball off center, means you're not hitting dead center on your cue ball. You're going to get deflection. So if you strike the cue ball off center to the right, you get deflection to the left. If you hit the cue ball on the left, you're going to get deflection to the right. The amount of deflection is how much off center did you hit, and also what was the speed of the shot, and also what is the distance between the time you hit the cue ball with your cue stick and you're making contact with an object ball. Okay, so there's a lot of variables there that for deflection. Okay, so that's what deflection is think about it. Every time you hit off center, means you're not hitting dead center in your cue ball, you're going to get deflection, either to the right or the left. Okay, alrighty. Now, with that being said, I picture a table, a 4.5 by 9, and picture that you're at the one end of the table and you're trying to hit a paper thin 8 ball on the other end of the table. Okay. So let's say that you make contact like this and the 8 ball goes in the pocket. Wonderful. Okay. Now let's say you hit dead center on your cue stick hits dead center on your cue ball. You make that shot 5 times in a row. Okay. Okay. Now let's say that you hit a little bit off center to the outside. Well, if you hit to the outside of your object ball, you're going to get deflection to the inside. So now instead of you hitting paper thin, you're going to overcut that ball, maybe by 1/4 of an inch, maybe to as much as maybe 3/4 of an inch or an inch, depending on how much you're outside your off center and the speed in which you're hitting. Okay. Likewise, let's say that you're hitting off on the inside, or toward on the side of your object ball. Well, then you're not going to touch that ball at all. You're going to miss it. So that's what deflection is, and that's how it affects your game in a negative way. I hope that makes sense. So if you're aiming perfect and you're not hitting dead center on your cue ball, that deflection to the left or to the right is either going to cause you to overcut the ball or undercut the ball. That's the bad part about deflection. That's why you want to try to avoid it. In fact, a touring pro once told me, if I have to hit a shot that's any length of the length of the table, if I have to hit a long shot where the object ball is not by a pocket, and I have to use more than a half a tip of English on the cue ball, I will not shoot the shot. I will shoot a defensive shot before I'll attempt that shot. So that shows you that even a touring pro tries to avoid deflection or left or right spin as much as possible. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about what a low deflection cue or a low deflection shaft really is. Okay, you take a regular shaft; it's going to be stiff. So that means when you hit your cue ball, most of the deflection is going to be the cue ball going to one side if you're hitting off center. Okay, because the shaft is not going to have any give to it. It's going to be very stiff. Okay, so let's just say that you have a 10 of deflection. Okay, and let's say that 1/10 of the deflection was your shaft kind of bending out of the way during the shot. Well, then the cue ball would deflect 9 for a total of 10. Okay. Now a low deflection shaft, what they do is they take a drill and they drill out the center of the shaft down about 7 or 8 inches. Okay, so it's hollowed out. Okay. Now what they do is they fill that area in with foam. Okay. Otherwise, you make a thuddy noise every time you hit a cue ball. And then they put a ferrule on it and then a Q-tip. So now, instead of a very very stiff shaft, now you have a very flexible shaft on the end of your stick. So now, same scenario. Let's say we have a deflection of 10 on a shot. Let's say that my cue shaft can bend out of the way a 3. Well, then that means my cue ball is only going to deflect 7. So if you notice, they say low deflection shaft, not no deflection. And you're still going to get deflection. You're just going to get less of it. Okay? Example on where you're aiming the ball perfect, but you're still not making the ball or you're missing the ball. And that happens a lot to a lot of people, and they don't understand why. So when people come to me and they become my students, first thing that I teach is stroke, stroke, stroke. If I can get you to have a perfect stroke where you're truly stroking your cue ball dead center with your cue stick, that eliminates so many of the problems that you're going to have with pool. You're not going to be missing a lot of shots. How many times do players say, man, I got over that shot, it wasn't that hard of a shot, I got down and I missed it big time. I mean, I didn't miss it a little bit, I missed it big time. And chances are on that particular shot, they probably just kind of went down there and their stroke let them down. Maybe they came around with their backhand and that caused their cue stick not to hit dead center, but to one side. They got deflection, and all of a sudden they missed a relatively easy shot. Might have cost them a game, might have cost them a tournament, you know. And it all stemmed from the fact that they got deflection when they weren't planning on it, you know. Another thing too, let's say you're planning on hitting a cue ball off center. Let's say you're planning on hitting a cue ball, let's say half a tip off center because you need a little bit of spin to get somewhere, okay? If that's the case, and let's say on that particular shot, you're going to end up with, let's say, a quarter tip of deflection, well, then you're going to have to overcut or undercut your object ball by that quarter of an inch. You're going to have to allow for it. That's why a touring pro one time told me, if I have to hit more than a half a cue tip off center, I won't even shoot the shot unless it's just hanging by the pocket. Because if it's a shot away from the pocket, I won't shoot it. Because there's a better chance than not I'm going to miss that shot. Now that's just a half a cue tip off center. And I've seen people get up there and they're doing a tip off center or a tip and a half off center. My goodness, I mean, the kind of deflection you can get on that, the length of the table, could be inch and a half. I mean, big time. I mean, not even close to where you were truly aiming. And so anyway, stay in the middle of the cue as much as you can. Improve your stroke to where your stroke is true, to where you're able to hit dead center on your cue ball. And if you do that, you probably won't need a low deflection shaft. And if you choose to use a low deflection shaft, I just want you to know something. You're giving up certain abilities when you do that. Number one is you're not going to be able to masse the ball the way I can with a regular cue. Another thing that you're not going to be able to do is you're not going to be able to draw the ball as well. The reason is you're going to aim low on the cue ball, and at the moment of contact, your cue tip or your cue shaft is going to flop down or give, and it's going to slide underneath your cue ball, and it's probably going to cause you to airmail the cue ball. I've had a lot of students come into class with low deflection cues, and they had a lot of trouble drawing the ball, and I would just hand them my stick and say, okay, try to draw the ball the length of the table with my stick. They have no problem, because it's not their stroke that's preventing them from doing it. It's that low deflection shaft, because it's flexible and it's flexing. It flexes when it hits the cue ball. It flexes down and slides underneath the cue ball, and it causes the cue ball to go everywhere. So just realize that if you're going to a low deflection shaft, that you're giving up certain things when you do that. It might help your deflection on shot to shot, but you're going to give up some things also, okay? Well, anyway, I hope this is helpful. I hope this information it will help you make a decision or maybe improve your game. But regardless, whatever you decide to do, it's a free country, and I just wish you well. Thank you much. Johnny Henson, Professor Poole, Billiard University. Have a nice day.